Hello, I'm Dr. Ken Landau. Thanks for watching. Let's talk about Chantix, or Varenicline. This is a drug approved in 2006 as an aid to help people stop smoking. A course is 12 weeks of therapy, and if you're successful at kicking the tobacco habit, you can take it for another 12 weeks, sort of as a crutch. The drug acts to decrease the cravings and decrease the pleasurable effects of nicotine, but it's only an aid to helping you stop smoking. The drug is not to be used necessarily by itself. It's used in highly motivated people who are given counseling and education and support. Now, getting rid of the tobacco habit is very important. Cigarettes are the second leading cause of death throughout the world. Every 6 seconds throughout the world, someone will die prematurely because of cigarettes. 7 million people will die because of cigarettes this year in the world. 1 billion people smoke cigarettes. Here in the United States, if we look at people over age 18, 1 person in 7, 35 million people still smoke cigarettes. 3,200 adolescents are going to begin smoking today. The economic cost of cigarettes going to be in excess of $300 billion. If you start smoking, you have a very low likelihood of being able to quit. 80% of the people who stop smoking today will be back smoking within a month. The likelihood of your being able to successfully kick the habit at the end of a year is only about 3%. Chantix was originally developed by a major pharmaceutical company, Pfizer, in 1997, and through a variety of machinations, the patents on the drug are going to last through 2020. Cytisus is a plant. The plant grows in Eastern Europe. It was used as a smoking substitute during World War II by the German soldiers and the Russian soldiers when cigarettes were not available. It was this substance that really served as the template for Pfizer when they developed Chantix. Chantix is available as a film-coated tablet. It comes in 0.5 milligram and 1 milligram doses. A course of therapy for days 1, 2, and 3, you take 0.5 milligrams once a day, increase that on days 4, 5, 6, and 7 to 0.5 milligrams twice a day, and then after the first week, you begin 1 milligrams twice a day. If you're successful, as I said, you can take it for another 12 weeks. Take the drug with or without food any time of the day. It's suggested that you take it after a meal and with a big glass of water. It's absorbed pretty well. After about 3 to 4 hours, it's in the system. It's going to reach a steady state at the end of 4 days. It's going to be excreted almost entirely through the kidneys without any drug metabolism. The half-life is going to be about 24 hours. You should start taking the drug and then about a week later stop the cigarettes. Or alternatively, if you don't think you can completely give up the cigarettes that fast, you start the drug, and then at the end of the first week, you cut down by 50%, and then the second week cut down another 50%, so that you're off cigarettes entirely by 12 weeks. Then you can take another 12 weeks of therapy if you would like. Doesn't seem to be associated with any kind of drug interactions. If you're a woman and you're pregnant, probably not a good idea to take this drug, although if you are a cigarette smoker, you put the fetus at high risk for a variety of long-term complications. But the drug isn't recommended for pregnant women, it's not recommended for women who are breastfeeding, and it's not recommended for people less than age 18, although the company did a phase 4 study that was requested by regulators in the United States and in Europe to look at Chantix in people between the ages of 12 and 19, and they found that Chantix plus appropriate age-related counseling versus placebo, well, unfortunately, didn't seem to result in any special benefit. Now, there's no need to alter the dose if you're taking it and you have liver disease or you have mild to moderate kidney disease, if you have kidney failure, then you should only take the relatively low dose of the product. You shouldn't combine it with nicotine patches. If you do, then you seem to have an increased risk of certain kinds of side effects like nausea and vomiting and headache and dizziness and dyspepsia and fatigue. And about a third of the people who combine the two products quit. Well, you've probably heard that there's a 44% likelihood that if you take this drug, that you'll be able to successfully stop smoking. Caveat, that's only at the end of 12 weeks. That's at the end of the course of therapy. But if we go out now, say, to 6 months, the likelihood that you'll be a non-smoker is only 14%, not 44%. Well, the drug was approved on the basis of 6 clinical trials that were funded in large part and conducted by Pfizer, the drug company. A third of the people dropped out of the studies. These are in people who are smoking on average about 1 pack a day, both men and women. They looked at people who were long-term smokers, and some of these people had chronic obstructive lung disease, they had heart disease or depression. They were provided not only with the pill, but with the educational booklet, and up to 10-minute counseling sessions per week, according to the appropriate guidelines. And the cessation rate, again, at 12 weeks, taking the full course of therapy, was indeed 44%, about 30% if the people only took 1 milligram a day. On the other hand, if you took Zyban, the likelihood of your stopping smoking is about 30%. Zyban is the same thing as Wellbutrin, is the same thing as bupropion. And if we look at people who were given a placebo, at the end of the study time period, about 18% of them were able to be non-smokers. Well, several studies in the early and mid-2000s up to 2013 showed that people who took Chantix were about 3 times as likely to be non-smokers at the end of therapy as people who were given placebo. But remember, all of the studies looked at people who not only were taking the Chantix, but also were given education and counseling and other kinds of support. Well, you need the counseling because you have to learn how to combat the urges and what happens if you're around people who are smoking, those high-risk situations. You learn how to deal with the conditioned cravings, but that's the positive. How about the negative? Negative is that Chantix may be associated with a significant number of adverse effects, neuropsychiatric problems, changes in mood, depression, mania, euphoria, psychoses, hallucinations, paranoia, homicidal ideations and aggressions and hostility, and even suicide or suicidal attempts. And if you stop the Chantix abruptly, it can increase the amount of irritability and your sleep disturbances. The government mandates certain warnings and precautions for those people who are taking the drug. So, for instance, can worsen seizures if you're suffering from epilepsy, or cause new onset seizures, can cause accidental injury because of dizziness or sleepiness that just seems to come on, difficulty concentration, cause loss of consciousness, cause some impairment in your ability to safely operate a motor vehicle. And it doesn't seem to interact very well with alcohol. If you drink, well, you might have some aggressive or unusual behavior and be not able to remember the event, have amnesia for whatever the event was, and you can start sleepwalking, and you can have allergic reactions, and sometimes you can have skin reactions that may well be severe, may well be fatal. People who take the drug have mild to moderate nausea. Now, it's often transient, but it frequently lasts for several months. It's dose dependent. That's why you have to begin at a very low dose and slowly build up to the standard therapy. It can cause headaches and difficulty sleeping in up to 1 person in 5, cause insomnia and abnormal dreams and nightmares and change in taste and vomiting and abdominal pain and flatulence and constipation. Well, the FDA was a little bit concerned about some heart-related problems that were associated with the drug They were alerted in about 2011, and some studies were done, but there was question about the methodology, question about the type of events and the dropout rates, so that all we can say is that it appears that Chantix may be associated with an increase in the incidence of non-fatal heart attacks, non-fatal stroke, might double the incidence, doesn't seem to result in an increased incidence of death. And when we look at the heart attacks and the stroke, doesn't seem to be statistically significant, even though it's a doubling of the incidence. If we look at the Food and Drug Administration adverse reaction reporting system, well, there have been 62,000 plus cases reported of reactions to Chantix, serious reactions, including death, about 23,000 people, and death, 1,100 people. Now, just because it's reported to the Food and Drug Administration doesn't necessarily mean it's cause and effect, but the numbers suggest that it's only the tip of the iceberg. Now, a study in JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association, in January of 2016, showed that the drug, Chantix, wasn't really any better than simply using a nicotine patch at the end of 12 weeks. The studies obviously have significant problems, but it would appear that the rate of early abstinence at the end of 12 weeks and delayed abstinence, if we look at people after a year, is the same on people who took the patch only or the Chantix only or combined the patch with the lozenge, the nicotine replacement patch and lozenge. And that was in addition to 6 counseling sessions. It would appear that people who took use of the counseling sessions seemed to do better than people who didn't. Now, publiccitizen.org considers Chantix among the worst pills, and Public Citizen and 4 other organizations, NPOs, nonprofit organizations, said, you know, we ought to have some more openness about the drug, and pilots shouldn't use it, EMT shouldn't use it, firefighters shouldn't use it, police shouldn't use it, the military shouldn't use it because of the difficulty with the concentration and the sudden lapses and visual problems that might come on with the drug. Consumer Reports, again, with nothing special, no financial interest, they say that safer options are counseling and the nicotine replacement patches, the gums, the lozenges, and they say that Chantix really should just be a last option, and they really don't recommend it. Actually, 5 organizations suggested tighter warnings: Public Citizen, Consumer Report, the Institute for Safe Medication Practices, and the National Center for Health Research and the National Physicians Alliance say, hey, we got an issue with this drug. And remember, it was approved in 2006, but by 2007, the FDA had already received reports of thoughts of suicide and suicidal behavior, erratic behavior, vision lapses, cardiovascular events. So that by 2009, the FDA said, hey, we ought to slap a warning on this drug. In 2011, the Institute for Safe Medication Practices already had reported about 272 suicides. In 2011, researchers from Wake Forest Medical Center said that Chantix had the worst record of any smoking cessation therapy as far as psychiatric problems were concerned. Well, in a 2014 review, the FDA said, hey, we don't really see any special increase in the suicide risk, but they refused to remove the warning in 2014, saying that there was a study that is not the answer to migraine headache prevention. It seems to have something to do with it, but we know that migraine headaches are a lot more complicated than calcitonin gene-related peptide. Now, this happens to be an area of intense interest. So Teva Pharmaceuticals and Lilly and Alder Pharmaceuticals in 2018, probably all of them will have drugs, but those drugs are going to be going to react against the CGRP itself, not against the receptor. So for whatever it's worth, the Aimovig is going to be unique in that regard. Then Allergan next year is going to come out with medication. How much does the drug cost? A lot. If you want to plunk down cash, it's going to cost you about $690 for just 70 milligrams of the drug. Interestingly, on GoodRx, They said that on July 4, 2018, the drug cost $307, and 2 weeks later, on July 18th of 2018, that price had gone from $307 all the way to $595, or about $19 a day. So it's going to cost you somewhere between $7,000 and $8,000 for a year's worth of therapy, but you could get a copay coupon, so it doesn't require cash out of your pocket as long as you're not a Medicare recipient or TRICARE or Medicaid. According to the company, that price reflects the value that the drug brings to patients and to society. Really? Well, when the drug was originally going to come out, the company had planned to charge, it was estimated, about $10,000, but Express Scripts, one of those pharmacy benefit managers, they said, hey guys, you better reconsider, because that's too high a price. And even though you give us rebates, for the consumer has to come out with out-of-pocket cash based on the list price, not the price that we, the big companies, have to pay for the drug. And around that time, the company, the Express Scripts, told the company that you better remember the story that occurred when you guys brought out, or Amgen brought out, a cholesterol injection, an injection that would reduce your cholesterol, dramatically reduce your cholesterol, but they charged $14,000. That was the list price of the medicine. And then, in response, the companies put up pre-authorization roadblocks and paperwork roadblocks. And then another company that was making the medicine, a similar medicine, they said, hey, we're going to reduce our price. We'll reduce our price from the $14,000 to between $4,500 and $8,000. And Express Scripts said, okay, Amgen, your drug is off of the formulary. We're not going to accept your drug. We're going to accept this drug that does the same thing, but does it for a cheaper price. And Express Scripts told the combination of Amgen and Novartis, better think about that when you price the drug. So at least it was priced somewhat lower than it was originally anticipated to be, but the Institute for Clinical and Economic Review, which is a watchdog for prices, said, oh my goodness, at the price you guys are charging, relatively few people who are potential candidates can receive the drug. Otherwise, the whole healthcare system is going to be overburdened with costs. So what's the bottom line? The bottom line is that it's a highly trumpeted drug, but it's only a small step forward. There's a lot more to migraine than CGRP. Now, some people who receive the drug are going to be phenomenally improved. Some people not going to be improved at all. And most people are going to get a couple extra migraine-free days per month, but at a significant cost. Reminds me of what my father used to say. It's not the be-all and end-all. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm Dr. Ken Landau.